Love it when a plan
Yay!
comes together.
All right.
Okay. Well, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks. Good, really good.
And thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, we're super excited.
Great smile, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes, love it. But you're a motivational speaker. Please tell us everything about you.
Sure.
I'd
Yeah,
like to know how you came up with your title of your speech.
Which speech?
Fuck normal.
Oh, yes.
So let me share a bit about my background. I was
Yeah.
born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. And there were really two things that had an impact on my life. I always felt a deep calling to serve people, a deep calling to serve humanity. As a 5, 6-year-old boy, I felt this burning desire to make a difference in people's lives. I didn't know why. I just felt like I wanted to be of service to humanity. I felt like my life wasn't my life. I felt like just this feeling I was going to reach a lot of people in my lifetime. And so I remember being around age 6, age 7, and being this chubby kid lost in the crowd, and I must have been around age 7 in Ghana, West Africa. And I literally saw this crippled woman crawling on the floor, and her hands were mangled, her legs were mangled, and she was crawling, and she picks up the sand that this man walks on and wipes it on her face and stands up. You could call that a miracle. So week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear, and people stand up out of wheelchairs. The same man whose hand she picked up, he would look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, "Why are you in that wheelchair? Stand up. You're not sick. Stand up right now." And she would say, "But I'm sick." And he would say, "No, you're not." And he would say, "Do you believe?" And this would go back and forth, and boom, the person would stand up. Someone would come in with crutches to see this man, and he would say, "Why do you have crutches? Throw your crutches away." And the person would say, "But I can't walk." And go back and forth. "Do you believe?" And all of a sudden, the person would throw the crutches away, leave walking. I grew up seeing this with my own eyes, kind of things you kind of hear about on TV. But this man was my father. And so I was privileged to grow up with this, really unique individual. He built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa. He built a huge church in London, hundreds of thousands of followers and congregants. When I was age 8, I started to speak in my father's church. When I was 14, I was it was announced to my father's congregation that I would be taking over his ministry, and I was his successor. I'll be honest, I knew in my heart that wasn't my path, that wasn't my life, that wasn't really what I wanted to do. That wasn't my destiny, but as a 14-year-old kid, I thought, well, I want to make a difference. I didn't really know any other way, and I guess I don't want to rock the boat and tell my dad, who he's like an icon to me, that this is not what I want to do. I knew the truth, that it wasn't my truth. And so I was afraid. I was afraid of, if I told my truth, I would lose my father. I was afraid if I told my truth that I'd be outcast. I was afraid to rock the boat. I was afraid to be alone. I was afraid to not be loved. So I said nothing, and I went along with it. And for 4 years, it was like a lot of inner turmoil, because I felt the truth of my own path in my heart. But it took me about 4 years to muster up the courage to really follow my path. And when I was 18, I finally had the courage to have the conversation with my father and tell him the truth and say, "Hey, Dad, I love you, but I'm not taking over your churches." And I could see, I was at a fork in the road where I could take the expected path of what hundreds of thousands of people are expecting for me and my life. I could take the expected path, but I could feel like it was a death. I would be miserable. I might be successful by everyone else's standards, but if I didn't have myself, then what do I have? So I knew I had to take. I was at a place in my life where I had to take this unknown path and really be willing to tell the truth to myself. And I think what I found is many times we are one of the things that keeps us stuck as human beings, maybe keeps us sick, maybe keeps us stuck, maybe keeps us broke, maybe keeps us unhappy, miserable, unfulfilled, are all the ways that we are not telling the truth to ourselves, all the lies, effectively, that we are telling ourselves to get love, to fit in, to be, whatever the reasons are, to keep our life together. We're afraid of the consequences of what will happen if I tell the truth. So we suppress, we lie, we settle, we rationalize. Maybe we're in a relationship that we know is not truly honoring, or it's abusive. We're like, it's okay. Oh, we make excuses. Or we maybe working a job that isn't really in alignment with our integrity. So, but we're afraid, what if I really am honest, how will I survive? I might be homeless, whatever our fears are. So we lie. And so I think to truly live a fulfilled, what I found, to truly be happy, I had to tell the truth. And I feel there's no way to truly live a fulfilled life unless we are truly being honest with ourselves. And that became a huge key for me in my life at that time. So I had this conversation with my father, and I just invite all those listening and those that work with me to ask themselves a few questions. And number one is really looking at, where am I lying to myself? What are the lies that I'm telling myself? And looking at, what am I pretending to not know? Like, what am I really lying to myself about? Because many times we play this game with ourselves. I call it the I don't know game, a game of confusion. Like, I don't really know. I'm not really sure how I feel. I'm not really sure, if this relationship is right for me. I don't really know if he's the one. I don't really know and deep down, we damn well do know. We really know. We know, but we're just afraid. So looking at, what am I lying to myself? What am I pretending to not know? What is it costing me? And being willing to feel the pain of this lie. And I feel when we're willing to feel the pain, I feel then we can feel the burn of the lie. What are the payoffs that I get from lying to myself? Maybe I get to keep my relationship, keep my life together, keep my income, whatever the payoffs are. And I ask people, is it really worth it? There comes a point where I feel the life that we end up living or we've created for ourselves is probably too small for who we're seeking to become. And to deny that makes us crazy, makes us sick, makes us unfulfilled. And so the last two questions simply are really looking at, what is it I'm most afraid of? And many times we make what is it I'm most afraid of if I tell the truth? And many times we make this, we create a negative future fantasy of the worst case of what we think is going to happen in our lives that actually never happens, and it holds us hostage. And if we can make peace with that and say, okay, this is what I'm most afraid of, but I can make peace with that, then it frees us. And the last thing is, what amazing thing might happen if you told the truth? What incredible thing might happen? Because many times we get so focused on this fear, often which never happens, that we forget that, wow, by telling the truth, I might actually clear some space in my life. Yes, I might lose some friends, but I'm going to create more space, new opportunities. I might meet my soulmate. So we're looking at the possibility. And so I left everything behind. And I was just in a place as an 18-year-old kid of no support from my family, completely outcast. I chose not to go to university. And I became obsessed with personal growth from a very young age. I read my first self-help book when I was age 8. I became obsessed with trying to really understand this whole thing.
Wait, hold on. You wrote your first self-help book?
I read my first self-help book.
Oh, okay.
And from 8 to 18, I became obsessed with trying to understand, who am I and why am I here? What's the purpose of life? And I read probably 800 books between 8 to 18, just Eastern mystics, the pop psychology books, the best-selling self-help authors, to the Western mystics, just trying to understand and make sense of, Louise Hay, Deepak Chopra, you name it, I read them. And that became my life. And so I wanted to come to America because I wanted to go into this industry. And I figured this is how I want to spread love on the planet. And this is the way I want to do it. So I left everything behind. I believe that whenever you follow your truth, somehow the universe starts to align and support you. And cut a long story short, I won a green card in the lottery, and that's what brought me brought me to the US. And then I ended up coming to the US, 2 suitcases, one in the country, 1 suitcase full of books and personal growth tapes, 1 suitcase full of clothes, $1,000. Won my green card, showed up, and the journey began. And went and found teachers and mentors and authors and healers, and ended up traveling the world in search of answers. And over the last 15 years, I've built a transformational coaching seminar company where I do events and seminars around the world. I've had the privilege of transforming the lives of everyone from billionaires, celebrities, athletes, mothers, children, salespeople, you name it. And that's my passion in my life. And now using my vision is to really help people on a mass level.
I was going to ask you how your family took it, but I think you answered that.
Yeah, my family, initially, my mother was, she was always very supportive. And she said, "Kute, if that's what you feel, I'll support you." And she was the only person that supported me. My father, we didn't speak for 2 years. But I knew that I knew it was going to be challenging, but I made peace with the fact I would have to possibly lose my father and not have a relationship with my father. And I just made peace with the fact nothing is worth compromising my soul. Nothing is worth compromising myself. Nothing is worth compromising my truth, because if I do that, I'm dead anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so I let him go and I set my father free, because, he had a vision for my life that wasn't my soul's vision for my life. And it took me a while to catch up to that and own that, because I was afraid. And so what I found is there's no shortage of people who will think they know what's best for you. There's no shortage of people who will project onto you what they think you should be, who they think you should be, how they think you should live your life. And there's no shortage of people that won't get your vision. And I believe that if those listening in, if you've been given a vision, you've been given that vision for a reason and not someone else, because you're the perfect person to fulfill that vision. So trust that vision. And that vision has chosen you for a reason. It's chosen you because based on your life, your story, your experience, your pains, your traumas, your quirks, your imperfections, you're the perfect person who is able to fulfill that vision. And I believe that our visions don't belong to us. We think we choose our dreams and visions. They choose us, and they choose us. So really, if they choose us, they belong to life. And so I believe our job is not to figure out how to make them happen, but it's to really get ourselves out of the way and realize that we are simply the vessels and the vehicles to allow the manifestation of those visions to happen. The manifestations, and those, if we truly trust, then those visions will be manifested through us. We'll be used for those visions to manifest to us. And I think that's the beauty. And so that's really been part of my path all along.
Wow, that's awesome.
So my father wasn't so pleased, but years later, a few 4 years later, we kind of reconnected and started to heal our relationship. And I think what was beautiful for me was being able to have a relationship with him on my own terms, honoring my own integrity. And I realized, when we sell ourselves out or when we betray ourselves in order to get love, validation, or approval, there's a part of us that knows that we're always having to live a lie. We're always having to be who we think people want us to be. And in that is the greatest slavery. We're not free. And I think when we truly give ourselves permission to be who we are, to be ourselves, then we start to attract to us people that truly are able to see us and love us, because we're revealing us, and we don't have to always do this lie and this deep fear that we all have as human beings of, if you really know who I am, oh my God, if Gary, if you really know who I am, then maybe you won't love me. So I'm going to try and pretend to be who, I'm going to try and put on this mask and pretend to be who I think you want me to be. And then I'm always having to be that. And we don't have a real relationship in the first place. So I believe that that's the greatest freedom, is to be yourself. And based on that, you have the foundation to build an authentic life. And that's really what I did. And not that it's easy. Sometimes people think, well, live your purpose, be yourself. It's easy. Sometimes find your purpose. It's even more challenging. Life tests you. You go through tests and challenges because life is now preparing you to develop the mental, the emotional, the spiritual muscle. Life is like a gymnasium to be able to be the person that's actually able to fulfill the dream and the vision that life has given you. So I faced many challenges along the way, but it's been an amazing journey.
Absolutely. So basically, to build our dream, we have to find a way to get past our circle of influence and our own self-doubt. Is that what you're saying?
So I would say it this way. We have to really find our truth, we have to go beyond who we think we've been. We have to go beyond our conditioning. And so here's what I'll say about that. When we're born, we're kind of born as children. Like, we're born these free beings. You look at a child will jump on the table and fully express him or herself. It's just singing. It's just singing. It doesn't care that it's not Celine Dion or Adele or Bruno Mars. It doesn't care. It's like, oh, Angie, am I fat? It doesn't care. It's just expressing itself. It doesn't care if someone's black, white, tall, short. It's full of love. It's in touch with its essence. But what happens? What happens is, as children, with these bright beings, unconditioned, in touch with our essence, in touch with the divine, and then we meet our parents who are a little crazy, or they're unique. Let's say they're interesting, but they're doing the best that they can do based on their conditioning from their childhood and their grandparents. I mean, it's just they're doing the best that they can do with what they have. So now we're being conditioned, and Lord knows we all have our own stories. Maybe we face pain, abuse, trauma, neglect, abandonment, whatever our story was. Maybe there was divorce. Maybe it was physical, whatever it was. So as children, these sensitive beings in touch with this brightness, we slowly learn, or fast, consciously or unconsciously, to disconnect based on our environment, to disconnect from the pain because we're not quite sure how to deal with it. So we learn two things. We learn to develop mechanisms to disconnect from the pain, and we start stuffing, suppressing, and shutting down pain as a survival mechanism to deal with our environment. And we suppress these pains, and layers upon layers upon layers of unexpressed, unresolved things build up inside of ourselves. And so that true light, our true potential, gets hidden underneath all these layers that we've learned to suppress, all these emotions that we learn to suppress that make us sick. When we suppress those feelings and emotions, the pain, whatever it is, and it makes us sick, literally, mentally, and emotionally, and physically. And then we also learn as children to go into the world. And we learn to go into the world, and it may be in response again to our caretakers, to our parents, the sense of, who do I need to be in order for my dad to love me? Who do I need to be in order for, when I'm loud and I'm free, then I get scolded. So, that's not okay. So I'll learn to be quiet and not be seen, because when I'm quiet and I'm a good girl, I'm a good person, I'm a certain way, I get validation and love from those around me. So we learn to develop a mask, a persona, a personality that we hold on to that becomes our sense of identity. So we learn to contort ourselves, avoid pain. We learn to develop this mask of, who do I need to be in order for you to love me? That becomes a mask and an identity that we hold on to. The more tightly we have held on to this identity, the less freedom that we actually have to fully express our potential. And that's why many of us, we feel so much inside of us. I mean, how many of us, we said, I feel like I have so much left to give. I feel like there's so much in me, but it just doesn't get out. It just doesn't get out, underneath the ways we've learned to contort ourselves, ultimately to function and survive. We learn many of these survival mechanisms from a very, 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 very young age. That served us well up until when we were 5 and 10 and 15 and 18. But now we're 20 and 30 and 40 and 50, and we're stuck inside of that because we think, no, this is really who I am. So really my work, whether it's, coaching people for many years one-on-one, or my events in Bali, Indonesia, or my weekend seminars in LA, are really about creating processes and experiences that help you identify your conditioning and help you unravel your conditioning and peel away the layers so you can connect back in touch with your authentic nature and live that. And I believe the degree to which we are conditioned is the degree to which you are not really free. We think we have free choice, right? We think, I'm a free person. But I joke with people and say, if you really look at some of the people you chose in a relationship alone, forget the rest of your life, how free was that really? I mean, how many times have you been in a relationship and you go, what the hell was I thinking? That wasn't free. We were running a program. We were trying to get maybe certain unmet needs met from childhood. So the degree to which we're conditioned is the degree to which we're not free. And the more we can become conscious and unravel our conditioning, the freer we become, the more access we have to our potential, and the more access we have to our ability to really, really, really choose. I just want to give one quick analogy, just so for those listening that might really paint this picture home. We developed masks. I had a client that came to my 12-day retreat in Bali, and many years ago, I had a client who came to India with me. It's written about in my book. And he came to India, and I looked at him when I first saw him for the first time. This guy was like a lion that was acting like a mouse, And I looked at him and I said, you're a lion, and you're just acting like a mouse. Someone who had this power, but they were like, just kind of like hiding their power, just to fit in. That's why I say, fuck normal. You talk about what was my talk about, because there's no shortage of people that will tell you, oh, Gary, why can't you just be normal? Why can't you just be like your brother? Why can't you just fit in? Don't make any waves. It's like,
Yeah.
fuck normal. Be yourself. What is normal? Anyway, normal, as a side note, is normal doesn't even exist. It's not even a real thing. It's a reality based on the state of your consciousness, state of another person's consciousness. It's not even a real reality, but it's based on what's perceived as normal in Brazil. It's not normal in Africa. It's not normal it's not even a real thing. And when you realize that normal is not like a real, like, here is a phone. This is a thing. Normal isn't a thing. It doesn't exist anywhere. It's just a concept. It's not. It's a concept held together by our agreement. When we realize it's not real, then you move through the illusion of what normal is. And when you move through the illusion of what normal is, you stop trying to fit yourself into some prescribed way of being of what normal is. And so this guy showed up to work with me, and I said, "You're lying. You've been acting like a mouse. It's time to stop lying." And he was like, "What do you mean?" And he came to me because he wanted to be more successful in life. He felt this potential inside of him that wasn't expressing. The only thing is, to be successful, you kind of have to like step a bit more into yourself. And he says, "Kute, I'm just a shy guy. I'm just shy. I'm just, I'm the guy, I'm the supporter. I'm not the in front of the stage person. I'm the behind the scenes person. I'm just shy. I'm a quiet kind of personality." And I said, "That is BS." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "During our work, you'll see." And here he is. He married a woman that was very outspoken. So here he's the shy guy. He's married a woman that's very outspoken. And he's like, I just get to support her. And yet something didn't feel really fulfilled inside of him, So it was this perfect combination in his relationship. So as I was working with him, I asked him in the beginning of our work a few questions. And I had this intuition, so I asked him a few questions. And he came back and he said, "Kute, after you asked me those questions, I cried for 24 hours. I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, it unlocked a memory inside of me that I was not even aware of up until now." He goes, "I'm a 55-year-old man. I haven't cried in 50 years. And he said, just not to get too heavy on everyone here, but he said to me, "Kute, when I was 5 years old, I completely blanked out and forgot that I was molested by my uncle. I did not even remember it until the last 24 hours. And he's just streaming down with tears. This thing that happened to a 5-year-old, he's this bright being that should not have happened. It wasn't okay. And he disconnected from it, and he suppressed the pain and the memory. And so now he's remembering this. It's coming up. He's crying. He's grieving. He's feeling all the feelings that he kind of wasn't in touch with. So what he learned as we started working together was, here it was, this bright being. As a child, he was loud and bright and magnificent. The innocence was taken advantage of. This thing happened that should not have happened. Unconsciously, he learned, it's not safe for me to be seen. Because when I'm seen, when I'm out there, it's dangerous. Bad things happen when I'm seen, because they happened back then. So there was an unconscious survival mechanism that kicked in, and his response to protect himself was, if you can't see me, you can't hurt me. So if I hide, or I'm a shy guy, and I'm in the background, you can't really see me, and it won't be so dangerous. And he'd been living his entire life inside of this conditioned program, which was a lie. It wasn't who he really was, but it was who he had been conditioned to be in order to keep himself safe. So I always ask, and I'll ask those listening, is who you are who you really are, or is it who you've been conditioned to be? Is who you are who you really are, or is it simply who you've been conditioned to be? And what masks are you wearing? What masks have you learned to wear that you think is yourself, but is not really who you are? And take a moment to look at those masks and confess those masks and become conscious of those masks. Because to me, becoming aware and conscious is the first step, is one of the first, along with telling the truth, is becoming conscious and aware is one of the first steps to transformation.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
Okay. Ooh, that was a lot. That was wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And how is he today?
Yeah.
He's great. He's doing great. Obviously, there's no such thing as perfection. Not like you go through transformation, but now you're perfect. But
Right.
but But what happens is that identity that we have built up and we have so conditioned ourselves to be starts to loosen and loosen and loosen and loosen and loosen. But when we're stuck in, and that's, so for him, he loosened up, so to speak, his conditioning. And so I believe that we have to tell the truth. We have to become conscious and aware. And then the third thing is the willingness to feel, all the emotions and the feelings and all the stuff that we learn to suppress, that either made us sick, that keep us psychologically unhappy. We have to be willing to feel that. And to me, to really heal, we have to be willing to feel. And many times we're afraid to feel because we're afraid, if I really feel all these feelings, my anger, my hurt, my sadness, there'll be no end to it, or I won't survive, or it will overwhelm me. And I have found that whatever we can feel with awareness, to be present to, with consciousness, with awareness, tends to dissolve, tends to melt away. And I think that's one of the third components in a transformational process, is our willingness to feel many of the things we've suppressed in order to function and survive. And so then you can start loosening and peeling away the layers of conditioning so that you access more and more of your spaciousness. And then I found that in that process, more and more of your potential, more and more of the life force energy, more and more of that innate intelligence can start moving through you and starts to express itself through you as you start moving out of preset, prescribed ways of being, always having to go. When someone says that, you respond a certain way. When in a relationship, when someone does that, you kind of go into a defensive mode. You actually now have more access to the full range of your ability to respond to life and the moment. And I think that's freedom. That's real freedom.
Yeah, I think we get stuck in that because, like, from the day that happened to 55 years old, every day that didn't happen to him again only proved that his adjustment in his life was correct, because he was safe.
Yeah, it got reinforced.
Yes. So for 50 years that happened.
And many times we're not aware, and that's the thing. We're unconscious. We're not aware. We think, no, this is who I really am. It's who I am. I'm just this kind of person. I'm just this way. And I ask people, really? Is that who you really are? So I think it takes a lot of courage. We have to start questioning ourselves, to really question ourselves. Who am I? Who am I really? Who am I? And to be willing to let that go, to be willing to die to who we've been, so to speak, is a tremendous. I believe it's why we're here. The process to really awaken to our true selves, and realize that at the deepest depth we are all whole, perfect, and complete.
Well, and that's with the people that we deal with, where they're at right now with being so sick. They end up feeling that way of, they don't even know who they are. They want who they used to be back, but even that person may not be the true person, their true self.
Yeah.
And so it gets scary.
It is scary.
You don't even have your own brain to wrap around this stuff, wrap around this information. And so, that's where people come from right now. And so, it's, we deal with people, like I said, that, I just lost my thought. I was just talking with somebody about this too. Something you had just mentioned. Sorry, I have lost my train of thought on that.
Yeah, but it's scary, it is scary to go outside of who you think you are. It's scary to it's like, this is who I am and I'm sure about this. It works. It keeps me safe. But we usually hit a point. This is what's exciting. When we usually hit a point, maybe we're trying to achieve a certain goal. Maybe we're getting a divorce. Maybe someone dies. Maybe we're trying to manifest a goal and it just doesn't happen. And we usually hit a point where that old mechanism, survival mechanism, is now inhibiting the next level of your evolution and growth. That old way of being is now, it's getting in the way of my ability to maybe have a relationship. I had this client who came to Bali with me in one of my 12-day Bali journeys, and she was like, "Kute, I really want a relationship with a man, but I can't attract. No guys are interested in me." This was a beautiful woman, a successful woman. She said, "No, men don't even look at me. She was beautiful. I mean, she was stunning and beautiful, and it goes, what's wrong with me?" And that was her whole thing. And really, what she didn't realize was her conditioning. As a child, her parents weren't around. As a child, they were not bad parents. It wasn't like there was abuse. They were just out working to try and take care of her and the family, and genuinely amazing people. They just weren't there. So she had to take pretty much, she was one of those latchkey kids, pretty much take care of herself, come home, feed herself. There was no one around. There was no one at home, especially when she hit 10, 11, 12 years old. It was her. So on some level, she didn't realize that her emotional needs as a child weren't really met. Those emotional needs, those sensitivities that we have as children, there was no one there. So she couldn't rely on her parents, because they were gone till really late, to be there for her, which for a child is quite a big deal, that bonding, that connection. And so she had to learn unconsciously, I can't rely on anyone. I can't be dependent and rely on anyone out there in the world, because no one, my parents aren't around. I have to become independent and rely only on myself, because I can only count on myself because no one is around. So she became the independent person. She became the ultra super independent woman, which then helped her succeed in business. She became a hugely successful businesswoman in a very masculine environment, building her own company, and was hugely successful. But now she became, not needing anyone, built a wall around her heart to also not feel the level of pain, the subtle pain of not having certain needs met. It's easy sometimes when it's obvious, like you're being beaten or whatever. It's oh, I can see that. But sometimes when it's just like they're just not around and you don't know anything else, sometimes it can be even more subtle, because you think, no, they were great. Everything was fine. Everything was cool. So, but what she didn't realize was she built a kind of subtle, invisible, but big wall around her heart to not need anyone. And in that, love couldn't really get in, and she wasn't open and receptive. And so she wasn't really available. She didn't realize until she came to my event the degree to which she wasn't actually, her heart wasn't open. Her mind was open, saying, I want a man, I want a relationship, but her heart wasn't open, because the wall, what would be required of her to be in a relationship, in a vulnerable, in a real relationship with a man, would be the willingness to be vulnerable and open and allow herself to need and be emotional and have needs, and you could say bring the wall down. But that wall had served her entire life to be successful, to take care of herself, to take as a single mother, and to just live life. And so now what served her well was getting in the way of her ability to be available to intimate, vulnerable, real relationship. So many of our behaviors that we don't like about ourselves, many of the things that we do that we sometimes judge about ourselves and wish we could change and wish we didn't do them, many of the ways we sabotage ourselves sometimes, right? Because we all procrastination, whatever, resistances, and all those ways all those things we do that sometimes we even beat ourselves up about. I say underlying every behavior is also a positive intention. So there's usually, even for her being not fully available and having this wall, that wall had a positive intention to keep her safe, to keep her protected. So usually, even underlying the negative behavior is usually a positive intention of that part of us that is trying to either keep us safe or get a certain need met. Maybe not in the best way. And if we're able to recognize the underlying positive intention underlying that particular pattern or behavior and acknowledge it, then it opens us up, I think, to have a bit more compassion towards ourselves and that part of ourselves, to be able to then go, wow, okay, I'm not doing this because I'm an idiot or I'm a bad person. I'm doing this because this part of me is trying to keep me safe, or I'm doing this because this part of me is trying to get love. And yeah, I'm not going about it in the most enlightened way, but now I know what this underlying motivation is. it means, well, I can maybe actually bring love to myself. So the next phase is really healing happens when we're willing. Healing happens in the process of bringing love to ourselves. And that's really healing. Healing is the application of love to the parts of ourselves that are hurting. And I think we're much more able to bring love to ourselves in the recognition, in the compassionate recognition of why we're trying to do what we're doing, even if it's not a productive thing.
Wow. It's kind of, when you were talking about being stuck, okay, heart stuck, building a wall.
Yes.
Sometimes that's why we need a mentor to talk to and not yourself, because your mind will not let you go there.
Of course. Yeah. The eyeball can't see itself, you know? The eyeball, we just think, no, this is what I am. But we look at the eyeball, can't see itself. It just thinks, I'm just a shy person. I'm just this way, or I'm just not capable of that. But we don't realize that we're just conditioned. And I think having a mentor is very, very powerful. This is part of why I do what I do, because I help people see themselves as a mirror, whether it's in large groups, in small groups, that people see themselves as a mirror to go, just take a look. Take a clear look at yourself and let's transform. And it requires, sometimes you say, take a look, and people go, no, people run away, because freedom is not free. Freedom requires that you give up who you've been. Freedom is not free. It requires that you tell the truth. Freedom is not free. But that's why I ask people, it's not free, but it's worth it. Whatever you have to go through, it's worth it. So the question I ask people, if they're really serious about transforming, is what do you want more than anything else? What do you want more than anything else? Because many times we say we want to transform, we say we want to heal, we say we want to shift, but we really don't.
And that's where I was going before, was on that point of people, it's too much work. It's they don't want to be in more pain, and they don't want to, and it's like, that's going to happen. That's just part of the process, and it doesn't mean that it's going to stay, but it is peeling back those layers, and those layers can be very painful.
Yes.
And I think that's the hardest part to get through to some people, is they've been in so much pain for so long, they just need to feel better, and they want to feel better tomorrow, and they want it to be, not really very much work at this point, because they've gone through so much work. And so I think that's the hard part in helping people understand, especially when when we go back to talking about the people that are sick. It's a whole different world than when you're dealing with somebody who's healthy and mentally there and able to understand everything.
Yes. Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to let go of who you've been. It takes a lot of courage to face yourself. And so if anyone's on that path, I just acknowledge you. It's not always easy. It's not always going to be pretty. It might be challenging. But it takes a lot of courage to be human, and feel all these feelings. But I ask the question, what do you want more than anything else? Because I believe if you really, 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 really want to transform more than anything else, truly, you want that more than anything else. Like if I took someone's head right now and I shoved it underwater, and you were like underwater, like, and I asked you, what do you want more than anything else? Would you like some chocolate? Would you like a Ferrari? Would you like to be on the Oprah show? I mean, hell no. What you want more than anything else is, I just want some air. And you'd be fighting with your life. That level, like if you want to truly transform with every ounce of your being, more than anything else, you will transform. Usually we don't. We have unconscious payoffs. And we become very comfortable with our life. And so we usually don't want to transform more than anything else. We want our comfort zone more than anything else. But if you really want to transform more than anything else, that's the beginning. And I would say sit with that question, because many times, like, no, I want my suffering. At least I know what my suffering is. But who knows what might happen if I really transform? At least I know my suffering is manageable, even though it sucks, it's horrible, it's painful. I kind of have a handle on my suffering. But what's over here, I don't know what's in this vast space. Maybe bliss, maybe joy. I'll keep my box of suffering, because I know.
Yeah, there is a benefit that they
Yeah.
feel that they are having from that, right?
Man, look, I had a client who came to one of my events in Bali, and here was a woman who, I give you this is crazy example, the things we do inside of ourselves to protect ourselves, right? We all do it.
Mm-hmm.
She told me, she said, and she wanted to step more into her power. She thought, I'm so powerful, I'm not stepping into my power. And so I wanted to find out what was going on. I like to track to find out what's really the root of things. And she said, when I was, I think, 12, 13 years old, I had to go to the doctor in the hospital because I couldn't walk for 6 months. Couldn't walk. And they thought, maybe I'll be paralyzed for the rest of my life. And she was telling the story, blah, blah, blah. And I just felt like, something's off. Something's not quite resonating. And cut long story short, we got down to the truth. And the truth, this was the first time she ever confessed it to anyone. And she says, Kute, the truth is, it's not that I couldn't walk for 6 months. I couldn't walk for maybe a month. I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, probably about a month I couldn't walk. But after a month, they found out what was wrong and they started, the doctors were doing their thing. After about a month, I could walk, but I didn't let anyone know. The truth is I played it up. And I said, tell me more. She goes, because I realized for the first time in my life how much attention my dad was giving me. Mm-hmm. For 6 months, my dad he wasn't around much, but now he was there and he was concerned and he was caring. He's spending time with me. And for the first time, I realized how much love my father was giving me. And that's how I knew. Basically, her pattern was I knew by being weak, playing weak, I got my father's love. And so she had a pattern of she couldn't afford to be powerful, especially with men. Because how she learned to get certain needs met was by being small and weak. And that was her pattern. We all have these patterns. Mm-hmm. And I believe we're on this planet to try to really break free of these patterns, which takes courage and took her being honest. Yeah, it really, really, really takes a lot. And so I have a lot of compassion, for each of us in this human experience. Most of us, many of us, maybe you're sick, maybe you're going through a challenging time. Many of us, we've all been through so much stuff, so much. I mean, it's a miracle that some of us are even alive to be able to have this conversation. It's amazing that maybe things aren't. It's amazing that some folks maybe haven't killed themselves and they're still here, either having this conversation, making a difference in people's lives, doing this podcast, writing. I mean, so I feel like it's so easy to judge ourselves, but based on what we've been through, we're like these flowers that were growing, and all of a sudden a cement block drops on us, and rather than shriveling up and dying, somehow we're still reaching for the light, and maybe we're adults and we're a little crooked, but we're still reaching for the light. And I say, we have to respect that. Let's honor ourselves. We're not perfect. Yeah, we screw up, we maybe hurt people, we do things, but you know what? It's just amazing that we're still here. It's amazing. So I just respect any human being. Any one of you that is still alive and you are reaching for the light, you are seeking to love, you have that something that you still want to make a difference. I honor you, I respect you for the courage it takes to be alive as a human being.
Thank you. Wow. Gary's actually been in that position. He was pronounced dead and in a wheelchair at one point. So we are very lucky. Very, very lucky.
And the last barrier that I just broke was I grew up not being able to read or write. I spent 6 years living in my van traveling around the country, taught myself to read and write, wrote my first book.
You're the man.
And was published in 2005. And I have always had businesses, my own businesses, but I couldn't read or write. So what I was doing was collecting people around me that would fill my void. And I'm with a relationship now where that wasn't happening. And I have come through that, and I am doing everything now. And that's pretty powerful.
You're both doing great work.
And so that's what we try to do with these podcasts is bring people in that can help people get past those barriers. You know, a lot of eating disorders are from those very things we're hiding from.
Yeah.
Or behind, I should say.
Yeah.
You know, we could have 3 or 4 groups of people that we go to, and we're a different person in each group.
Yep.
It's very strange how, and we don't even know we're doing it.
Yep.
And the minute you change, they don't want you in the group anymore.
Right. Right.
Which is bizarre, but it does happen because you don't fit anymore. And that challenge of being able to let them go and move forward in your life, because you're going to have new friends. A lot of people don't want to let go of their old friends.
Right.
And that's part of the hanging on. So when you run into that, how do you help people either see past that, or can you help them get past that, or is that just their own journey?
You know, I want to answer that question, but I actually need to run in a moment, and I'm loving this conversation so much. We may need to do a part 2 if possible.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'm up for a part 2, so if we'd be open to continuing in a part 2, that I'm having so much fun. I don't want to hang up, but I know
I love it.
On a live call in like a minute.
Okay.
And if I get started on this, it's going to be so,
yes, and I want to hear you tell us about Bali too, because I know you're going to Bali. So yes,
for sure,
that'd be wonderful.
It would be great, and you know, for those that maybe want to, just as a wrap up, connect with me, find out about Bali, find out about my events. You can. There's a couple of websites, and I'm sure you'll share it. But you can go to www.boundlessblissbali.com. And also maybe those that are interested in picking up my book, You Are the One, you can go to Amazon, just punch in You Are the One, or go to www.youaretheonebook.com and find it there.
Fantastic.
It's been great hanging with you guys.
Oh my gosh, it's been amazing.
Let's do it again.
Absolutely, let's do it again.
Sure.
Thank
you. Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Much love for now.
Yes. Thank you, Coop.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.